Hello. So I'm not entirely happy about this. Shaun and Jen. For those of you who don't know Shaun and Jen, they're a SJW left-leaning channel, and they do the same shit that we do here, more or less. I don't really like Shaun and Jen. I've never really heard Jen. Jen doesn't really, as far as I know, get on the video. I don't really know. I don't know what Jen's part in the whole thing is, but Shaun, I don't like Shaun. I think Shaun does more damage than good because he's kind of a condescending prick. Like, he's just a really condescending prick. So that's why this is going to be a long video, cause like, I was going to cut things out because he does tend to ramble, but it takes him it just takes him a really long time. Usually when people do Shaun and Jen videos, they speed up the audio. I'm not going to bother with that because, fuck it, this is just going to be a long video. But it's going to be a long video. So I don't know what to tell you. Skip around in it. Fuck it. It's going to be the same horse shit through the whole thing. So pretty much you can go anywhere and find something fucking... I really don't like that. Like, it's so ponderous. He's so ponderous. And it takes forever for him to fucking finish. It's just... So forgive me. What can I do? I'm going to be as funny as I possibly can through the whole thing. But, you know, they're not all going to be over the park. Over the wall. Fucking sometimes you get up to the plate and it's just a ball, but, you know, you take your ball. I don't know. This could wind up being a single by the end. I've been wrong in the past, but I have a feeling that this one's just not going to do very good. Sorry.
Hello everyone. So today I want to talk about white identity. One question I get a lot on my Curious Cat page is, are you worried about the prevalence of white nationalist rhetoric among younger white men online? And my answer is always yes, I am. But today I thought I'd flesh that answer out a bit and discuss these young white guys and their increasing familiarity with open white nationalism.
Alright, I feel it important at this point to explain my views on white nationalism. They are, as I'm sure most of you right now might be guessing, I don't really know what that means. I don't really know what a white nationalist is. I don't really care. Like, that's too much like a party affiliation for me, and I find faults in all party affiliations. So they call them Nazis. So if they're Nazis, then no, I don't like white nationalists. If they're people that disagree with their points of view on certain issues, then okay, then it's another group of people. Like, I don't know. If they're people that think that segregating, like, I kind of have a thought in my mind that what it is, this is me guessing, what it is like, they want to go back to separating the races and fucking essentially saying fucking Omaha is white state and shit like that. Like, if that's what they want to do, I think that's a stupid fucking idea. I'm fine with diversity. It's just, let's be fucking, you know, honest about it. Let's not be stupid. So, like, I don't know. I don't really know what a white nationalist is. It seems like something that I don't want to be affiliated with because it just doesn't seem like that would be anything that I'd be interested in. But I don't like watch Richard Spencer speak. Like, I don't have any interest to. You know, call it an instinctual dislike, if you will. I'm not interested in finding out even what it's about because I have my opinions and I'm fine with my opinions and I just don't need any more groups in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know what Antifa is either, so fuck it.
And we're going to tell a bit of a story. We're going to talk about how this identity coalesced and gained steam during Gamergate, and how it transformed into the Pepe avatar alt-right Trump-supporting mess it is today. And the reason I really want to talk about this now is that I've been noticing a certain dissatisfaction with Trump among a lot of the frogs, and many of them understandably don't seem too happy with the general level of ineptitude he's displayed since coming to office.
Ineptitude. See, like... the general ineptitude. Dude, you don't know any fucking, like... I think that's an awfully harsh judgment from a YouTuber. You know, just saying.
And many others are even openly expressing regret for even having voted for him. You know, you've got the usual Pepe avatar people, the folks using the frog emoji in their Twitter names, and Trump's also apparently lost the support of Darth Vader, Frankenstein's monster, and Skeletor.
Which I feel kind of shows the level of concern that one should have for all of this fucking horse shit, because, like, people on Twitter don't like something that Donald Trump is doing. Like...
So I also want to ask, how did all of these chumps get hoodwinked so easily? And once they all wake up to the fact that Trump was just using them all along, where are they going to go next? Now, a few disclaimers before we start. Unlike some people, I don't think Gamergate caused Trump to become president or anything, you know.
Yeah, I don't think that Gamergate caused Donald Trump to be president either. But I do think that the things that caused Gamergate caused Donald Trump to become president.
While there was a small swing away from the Democrats among younger people, and of course Trump was definitely favoured by white men.
Definitely favoured by white men in a predominantly white country where the greater portion of men vote than women. How amazing that the majority of them would vote for the guy that won.
I don't really think any of these Pepe memes or the likes really affected the outcome of the election that much. We're giving them too much credit, I think, when we suggest that.
I agree with you there. I just... like... you give a lot of credit to different places in this video that makes about as much sense as giving credit to memes and Pepe frogs and all that shit. So it's kind of funny. Like, this is one of those times where I want you to keep that, what he just said there, keep that in your mind as we go through this, because it's just fun to do.
Another disclaimer, this video is not a defense of these guys. When I ran this idea past Jen, she thought it sounded like I was making excuses for them. And I don't want to do that. I'd like to try and explain their behaviour and motivations, but not excuse their actions. So I thought I'd just make that clear here. I apologise if it seems like I'm giving them an easy ride.
Well, I accept your apology for the easiness of this video. I do. I really do. I accept your apology. Thank you very much for that.
And a final thing before we start. I'd like to say hello to any of these people who are watching. Hello there.
Hello!
Thanks for stopping by to hit dislike and call me a cuck and so on. But once you're done with that though, I would encourage you to stick around and watch the rest of the video just for a change of pace, if nothing else.
See that? Shaun wants you to watch the rest of the video too. If for nothing else than the change of pace. Usually the pace of my channel is pretty quick, and today we're changing the pace to slow.
Right now, you won't agree with anything I say, and you'll think I'm an idiot, but it'll plant a few seeds in your head that'll slowly come to fruition. And eventually, in about 2 or 3 years, you'll realise that I was right about everything.
See, and it's funny, because having seen this video twice now, I can honestly say that yeah, I would say that many of his predictions by the end of this, many of them will probably become true. They're pretty broad and they're pretty obvious, but you know, that's how people who tell the future work. Broad and obvious.
That's the hope, anyway. Anyway, let's get to it. So let's set the stage. Who are these people who we're talking about? Well, they're nerds on the internet who are typically straight, white, cis, young, and male.
It's just, you know, there's your stereotype. You know, it's so confusing because I don't really watch a lot of Shaun and Jen, so I don't really know what Shaun's opinion is on you know, stereotypes and whatnot. Traditionally, the SJW type, they don't really like stereotypes. They think that that's bullshit. So it's funny that we're using stereotypes here, but you know, just bringing that up. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not really calling Shaun on hypocrisy or anything like that. It's just, you know, makes you wonder. Plants little seeds in your mind, right?
Not exclusively, granted, you know. For every one of those identifiers, you can find a few outliers, but broadly, that's who we're dealing with. And to start off, let's try and get inside their mindset. Now, this is something easy for me because I used to be one of these people until I grew out of it, you know. If my parents had met 5 to 10 years later, I'd probably be watching alt-right YouTube videos and tweeting about Kekistan, whatever that's supposed to be.
Which is kind of funny to me, because it's like, you're pretty much saying you'll go with whatever the trend is at the time. Like, because you are 5 years younger than right now, or whatever, or because you're, whatever, because 5 years ago you got into feminism because feminism was the big thing. So if you were born 5 years later, you'd be into this now because this is now the big thing. Kind of goes to the type of person that you are, Shaun. Like, that's sad.
And that's a scary thought, you know. There but for the grace of God, go I. And here's the world according to the frog people. First off, institutionalized prejudice is a thing of the past. And indeed, if prejudice against minorities even exists at all anymore, it's purely on an individual level. It's a personal choice informed in no way by wider society. And legality trumps all argument here, you know. Minorities have the vote now, and business discrimination is technically illegal.
Technically illegal. Technically illegal. So I can only go, because he doesn't clarify that, so I can only go as far as to guess that what he means is, if you don't get caught, it's technically illegal. Well, you know, murder then is technically illegal. If you don't get caught, rape is technically illegal. So technically, the fuck did you mean by technically illegal? Because it's illegal, like, in actuality. So,
therefore, it doesn't happen outside of a few bad eggs. Secondly, we live in a meritocracy. If women get paid less than men, that's because they can't compete. If black people get arrested and incarcerated disproportionately, that's because they're more likely to be criminals. Everyone is on equal footing now, you see. And if anyone can't keep up with straight white men, well, that's just because they're not as good.
See, nobody really believes that we live in a meritocracy. We want to live in a meritocracy. It would be awesome if we could live in a meritocracy. The only problem with living in a meritocracy is the resistance to said meritocracy. And to say that black people are disproportionately incarcerated because they just are black, like, I don't get that. I don't understand that. I don't get what you mean by that, because that's not true. Generally, people, when they get convicted of crimes, it's because they were found to be guilty of those crimes. Like, we don't really just imprison people because they're black. It just doesn't happen. You can say that as much as you want, but I'm sorry, you don't get a pass on your criminal behavior because you're black. Like, you only get a pass on your criminal behavior if you're, an immigrant.
Now, most of them know not to say it this directly in the open, of course, but basically this is what they believe. And it stems, in part, I think, from a misunderstanding of history. If you don't know too much about history, it's hard to contextualize a lot of this stuff, especially if you're a younger person. Everything that happened before they were born took place sort of nebulously a long time ago, and now it's all the same as ancient history. It has no bearing at all on the modern day, or so it seems to them.
Well, see, my question here is, how much bearing should it have on the modern day? We're past the point of slavery. Like, we don't keep slaves here in America anymore. So how long do we have to sit in moratorium of the past slavery before we'll all just kind of move on? That's my question. Like, we're not still going on about the Arabs and their slave trade. So a couple thousand years, like that's how long it's going to need to take? Really? Like, how long do we need to wait before we can move on past this shit? That's my question. Doesn't make me racist, just makes me curious. Like, how long until we can be equal? Like, in everybody's eyes. How long before we can live in meritocracy? How long before it's not going to be my fault that people were slaves a couple hundred years ago? Like, how long? How long? How long does original sin last for a white man?
For example, it was not that long ago in my own life that I realised how relatively recent legal slavery was in the West, and the effects of that system are not something that disappear overnight, obviously.
Yeah, fine, not overnight. It isn't the next day anymore. Like, how long?
Similarly with women's suffrage and so on. Speaking in terms of the span of human history, this all happened yesterday.
Well, for fuck's sake, man. Speaking in the span of human history, Christians were fed to lions not too terribly long ago. Maybe not yesterday, but, like the day before yesterday, Christians were being fed to lions then. So, what? In the span of human history.
And another factor here is just the natural tendency to want to see arguments break in your favour. It's much easier to believe in a meritocracy if you're someone who is already doing okay. Or rather, and it gets a little complicated here, someone who is not doing okay, but feels like they should be, and blames the fact that they're not on the enemies of the imaginary meritocracy.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, I feel like I'm doing just fine. Like, all things considered. But I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say to that, because it just all seems so silly to me. Like, I don't get it. Like, if you believe in a meritocracy at all, you have to believe that if you're failing in life, it's because of your own faults. If you say anything else, you don't believe in a meritocracy. So, what are we doing here?
If the playing field is naturally already level, then any attempt to advocate for any type of social minority is coming directly and unfairly at the expense of straight white men.
That's kind of like saying that any failure of any minority is coming directly because of straight white men. Like, what? So you flip the coin over and you see the other side. Like, what are we doing here?
When is White History Month? Why can't we have a straight Pride Parade? When is International Men's Day? You see, to these young white guys, it seems like everyone else but them has an identity that they're allowed to be openly proud of.
That sounds reasonable to me. Like, that doesn't sound reasonable to you? Are you living in this world? Like, are you so focused on the oppression of minorities that you're not paying attention to the oppression of the straight white man? You single issue voters.
And that doesn't make sense if we're supposed to be on a level playing field. You know, why is it that a black person or a gay person can take pride in those identities, but I'm not allowed to openly take pride in my race or my sexuality? That's not fair. Now, as a straight white man myself, I understand the answers to those questions, but that understanding came at the tail end of a lot of learning and reading and contextualizing.
And eating horse shit. And just bathing in guilt. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to go through that crucible, my good man.
Perhaps more learning and contextualizing than it's reasonable to expect a teenager to have done, especially considering the state of the education system in a lot of these places in the States, but...
See, it's because you're all stupid. This is condescending prick, man. Like, it's because you're all stupid. It's because y'all fucking don't read, because reading's for fags, right? Like, I read a lot, dude. I read a lot. And I watch a lot of news, and I watch a lot of documentaries and whatnot, and I am more than capable of matching wits with you.
You know, that's just the younger ones, I want to make clear. Some of these guys are in their 30s and older, so I've got no sympathy at all for them.
Oh! So, we can take the gloves off! Huh! Well, I think I'll still keep it civil on my end. Thank you very much. I'm gonna smoke because you piss me off.
Anyway, with these minority identities come narratives. Narratives that include being oppressed and working to overcome that oppression. And now, if we don't consider all the negatives of oppression, you know, if we take the actual oppression out of oppression, it can seem quite romantic. You know, succeeding despite being the underdog is a lot more exciting and heroic, narratively speaking, than succeeding when society expects you to succeed. And among these young white men, there's definitely an unvoiced and perhaps even subconscious jealousy of being left out of that narrative. In fact, they share their identity with the oppressors in all of these narratives. You know, white over black, straight over gay, cis over trans, men over women, and so on. So it seems to them that they've been unfairly cast as the bad guy without actually having done anything wrong as an individual. So society, rather than being biased against people who aren't them, is actually therefore biased against straight white men who are not allowed to have an identity or a narrative.
And we're not. Because our identity in your narrative is as the oppressor. So, if we try to get our own identity, our own narrative, we still have to be the oppressor for your shit to work. But made me laugh. Like, as I'm watching this, I actually was paying attention to the screen this time. And paying attention to the fact that he's, like, taking tweets from Kekistani people. Like, the Frogman. Like, I have yet to read one not sarcastic, fucking serious Frogman tweet. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't get what we're doing here. All of those fucking Twitter accounts, they're all sarcastic ass motherfuckers. Like, what are we doing here?
And I'd just like to reiterate at this point that I don't agree with any of this, and this is happening primarily in their own heads. That's just to clarify for Jen if she's listening.
Yeah, let's clarify for Jen. You don't believe that people are going around saying that white guys that disagree with your point of view deserve to be punched. Like, alright, I'm glad you don't believe that. I believe that, because I've seen it, and I've heard it, and there you go, but whatever. I'm glad you don't believe it. Thank God Jen knows that.
Now let's first position ourselves in time a couple of years ago. and we've got a bunch of angry young white dudes on the internet without much historical, economic or political context with which to understand the world.
Well, what is your economic context? Because when you start to get into economics, you lose me a lot. You don't really explain your points of view, but they seem all very stupid to me. Like the ones you allude to seem very dumb to me. So I don't really get your economics either, buddy.
And they're feeling increasingly left out. If something unfair or embarrassing or upsetting or disappointing happens to them, they can't say, well, it's probably because I'm white or straight or a man. You know, there's no socially acceptable explanatory narrative at hand for them to rationalise the negative aspects of their lives. In fact, society is constantly signalling to them the opposite, that they should be doing great. You know, you're the best, you should be on top, but that's not how it feels to them. And they can't openly bemoan the fate of straight white guys without being called idiot racists, so what do? Well, they displace their anger and frustration onto the one other identity that pretty much all young white men on the internet share. They're all gamers. They all play video games.
It's just everybody's a monolith. They're all gamers. It's all gamers. Alright, so are we dicing it down into a smaller group now, or are we just lumping everybody together? Because who even cares?
So, Gamergate, where the gamers finally said, we're not going to take this anymore. And everyone else said, take what anymore? And the gamers replied, we're not going to take this anymore, but louder. So I'm going to say some things about gamers here, so full disclaimer, I play video games. I play too many video games, but I've never really cared when someone insults capital G gamers, because video games are just a hobby for me, you know. They're something I do for fun in my spare time. Being a gamer is not my identity. I don't define myself by the fact I play video games, and nor should anyone else. But that's just me.
Well, I'm glad you acknowledge that there are people that believe differently than you. It's sad that they're all white nationalists, but, you know.
Anyway, Gamergate. Now, my own experience of Gamergate was to sit on the sidelines heckling and metaphorically throwing rotten fruit at people. Now, my guilty pleasure was going on Reddit or 4chan or something awful and asking, hey, so what's this Gamergate thing everyone's talking about? You know, just to make everyone type huge text walls about what they thought Gamergate was. So for the blessedly uninitiated, what is Gamergate? Well, briefly, hopefully, in mid-2014, independent game developer Zoe Quinn was the subject of a blog post published by a former boyfriend that accused her of cheating on him with various men, including a games journalist who had previously written about her and a video game she made. So, what does this incident have to do with anything? Who does it affect outside of the people directly, personally involved? The answers are nothing and nobody. Of course, a couple had a messy breakup, basically, but hey, something had to light this trash fire, and it wasn't going to be something legitimate, was it? So we're stuck with this nonsense.
So is that kind of an admission that the whole situation is nonsense because the start of it was nonsense?
And if you think about it, the Zoe Quinn incident is sort of the perfect storm in a teacup, to mix my idioms there. It's a minor incident, but it's got a lot of contextual multipliers acting on it. It's about a woman, which is a good start. A woman game developer, so a woman trespassing in the no women treehouse. She had sex, which is usually a frightening concept in and of itself for self-described gamers.
Well, you just got everything fucking figured out, don't you? Like, it just the condescending prick.
She allegedly cuckolded a man, and of course the most frightening type of sex a woman can have is sex that is not with me. And there's implicit fraud and deception proving true all my suspicions about women being duplicitous harlots who'll deceive me at every turn. And all of these multipliers act to make this remarkably trivial and stupid incident actually significant in the minds of certain people, and so they proceeded to organise on sites like Reddit, 4chan, 8chan and so on, and built a movement primarily concerned with endless complaining about Zoe Quinn and various other game developers and journalists who were apparently conspiring to maliciously ruin video games for everyone using feminism. Really though, Gamergate wasn't about Zoe Quinn or Anita Sarkeesian or ethics in video game journalism, which I think became a joke roughly 5 seconds after the first person even dared to suggest it. It wasn't even really about video games, it was about young, straight white men and their lack of an identity, in my opinion anyway. Gaming was the one area of entertainment that they felt was still created for them. Of course, that's not true, but they felt it was true, which is the important thing.
Because feelings and how you feel about things, that means everything, right?
Gaming, being the relative newcomer among television, films, books and the likes, has been lagging behind somewhat in its representation of minorities. And it's only fairly recently that people have been talking and writing about games as if they're a real art form, subject to real, thoughtful criticism. Once almost exclusively the domain of young white male nerds, gaming's in the process of opening up to all sorts of players and all sorts of game developers and all sorts of people writing about games and what they're like and what they could and should be. And game developers are listening to all these people and games are changing. Slowly, obviously, but they are. Which poses a problem for the folks who had taken on gamer as a surrogate identity. For young white guys, video games were a safe space where you didn't have to deal with all these other people and all their different opinions and narratives, and now here they come, insisting that the thing you've adopted as the central pillar of your identity, the only aspect of your identity that you feel comfortable actually openly enjoying, needs to change. And they respond to this with a hysterical ferocity that can seem inexplicable if you don't realise that in their heads they are a genuinely maligned minority. It's every bit as serious to them as they imagine the civil rights marches were for black people or the suffragette movement was for women. It's ridiculous, obviously, but lacking an easily identifiable oppressor, these young white men have simply fabricated one. They've constructed a movement and...
Kind of like the patriarchy.
Us versus them. Their narrative has become us versus the people who won't let us have a narrative. Social justice warriors, feminists, whatever you want to call them. They won't even let us play video games in peace anymore. They hate us and want to change us just for being who we are, which means we're oppressed. Finally.
See, and that all kind of is the way it feels. Whatever, you don't feel that you're a part of that, and that's good for you. You've got your own guilt, and that's fine. But I don't have any guilt. Just let me fucking live. You let me be, I'll let you be, and we'll all fucking get along. That's the way most people, I think, feel.
So these communities exist now, and they're backed into a corner in their own heads, Their gamer identities eroding under the horrific onslaught of walking simulators about lesbians and relatively unobjectionable women saying they think female soldiers should wear more than a bikini in a battle. And it raises an interesting point. It's always the minorities that get accused of being obsessed with feminism and identity politics and so on, but in reality, those things ultimately exist to level the playing field. They're a means to an end, that end being equality. No.
But feminism and all that stuff, that's equality by force. It's lowering the bar, lowering the standard to include all, as opposed to raising everybody else up to the standard that's already being set. Therein lies the problem.
Ostensibly, you'd think these straight white men don't have to be concerned with all this stuff if they don't want to be, They don't have to go on about feminists online. There's nothing keeping them here, really. They can go and be free. Become Randy and Superman, genius alpha male CEOs, or whatever it is they imagine they'd be in an ideal world. But that's not happening, is it? Because, of course it's not. We don't live in this ideal world. We live in an often rubbish world. So, let's talk politics.
Like, it's just, it seems like it's a puzzle that he's cut the pieces specifically so that they'll just fit. Like, talk about setting a narrative.
If you're age 18 to 26 in the United States, then the only president you've known during your adult life has been, until very recently, Barack Obama. The Bush administration is a distant memory by now. If you voted for the first time you're able to in 2016, then you were 5 when the Iraq War broke out. That's scary, isn't it? So, a Democrat's been at the helm for 8 years, and yet there are all these problems still in society. And of course there are excuses for the existence of all of these problems. Perfectly legitimate excuses, even. Obama came to power shortly after one of the worst economic downturns in the century. You can blame Republican obstructionism, corporate lobbying, the news media, capitalism in general.
Capitalism in general. Capitalism is meritocracy, so of course you would think that capitalism is just terrible. Because capitalism is a meritocracy. The better you do, the better you do. Like, the more work you put in, traditionally, the better the outcome. Unless your idea is for shit, in which case it fails on its own because the idea itself is shit. So, of course you would not like capitalism. You hate the idea of a meritocracy, so...
And there's at least some merit in all of these factors, especially the economic ones. There's something about huge layoffs and wage freezes and bailouts that gets everybody down, societally speaking. So what does this mean for our fresh-faced young white men? Well, they don't want to be told that this is as good as it gets. Tons of things suck under Obama, but at least he's not doing as bad as a Republican. It's not much of a carrot, really, is it? It's true, in a sense, but nobody's getting all that excited about it. It's certainly not motivating a bunch of young white gamer dudes to go and vote for a woman, that's for sure.
What makes me laugh about it is, like, you're talking about young white men. These are men that were grown up traditionally in households of women, and they've lived in this Marxist world that everybody wants to create, where everybody's equal and everybody gets a trophy and we don't keep score and all of that kind of nonsense. That's what they were raised under. These people have no coping skills, and so therefore, no, they don't like the idea that everything isn't fucking rainbows and fucking puppies when they get out of college. Yeah, this is what your ideology has created, Shaun. If you have a feminist ideology, here you go. This is what you get. A lot of angsty, pissed off people who've been told all their lives that they're bad because they're white or black. It's the lesson that white people weren't learned with black people. You just can't keep people down. It doesn't work very well. Why you guys are trying it, I don't understand, but maybe it's because you guys study so much history.
I mean, they haven't seen enough political cycles yet to understand the only choice they have. They've got the Republicans, who have the image of being old, religious, stuffy, and uncool, and the only other option seems to them to just be more of the same. And in the boom years, the system can get away with this. People have jobs, they're earning money, things are ticking over. But then inevitably, you get the bust years, where suddenly young people's expectations and possibilities start diminishing. Compared to their parents, which is one of the main parameters by which their success in life is going to be judged. It's more expensive to go to school, it's harder to get a job, that job won't pay as much money, it's harder to afford a house. And then when it comes voting time, you have to choose between the people who are actively encouraging all of this and the people who keep promising to fix it all. but never actually seem to get around to doing it. And both parties are staffed largely by people funded by the corporations who have a stake in nothing being done. This is not much of a choice.
No, it isn't. It isn't much of a choice at all.
Now, a little disclaimer here. I'm not saying both parties are the same. They're not. Particularly if you're anything but a straight white man, it is massively in your interest to vote against the Republicans. The Democrats' action on minority rights is rather lackluster, actually, in my opinion, but it's better than the open hostility of the Republicans.
Open hostility of the Republicans. Like, I just don't see the same things you do. It doesn't affect me the same way it does you guys. I am not all emotion and what about the people. Like, I'm all what about the people, just not what about the people that you're concerned with. I'm concerned about my neighbors as opposed to everybody else in the world.
For straight white men, however, it is easy to see why so many were suckered in by Trump. You know, there's the obvious. He positioned himself as an anti-establishment candidate in a year where establishment candidates were incredibly unpopular. He attacked the usual stable of Republicans running, said he was going to drain the swamp and so on. Really though, for our young white guys we're talking about, I don't think that Trump's political positions were all that important compared to what Trump represented.
I don't understand that statement at all. I think Trump's political positions were important to everybody that voted for Trump. One of his political positions was important. I really don't think there was many people. I mean, there's always the random people that do those weird things. But I really don't think there was anybody that was like, he's a white guy. And that was the only...
He was a fantasy, in a sense, because he was a white man who said whatever he wanted to. And he got away with it. He would openly pander to bigoted white people, and there's a big market for that lately, as it turns out.
I would like to know what you're referencing in that. Like, just the condescending bullshit. Just the random statement. Just the fucking... Dude, you make up your own fucking whatever. This is your movie. Whatever.
His ideas are all laughable, practically speaking anyway. A Muslim ban, a big wall to keep foreigners out. It's cartoonish and ridiculous, clearly, but none of that matters. Trump was a white man sticking up for white men when it seemed like no one else would. Make America great again.
Yeah, that's easy to get behind. That's real easy to get behind. When you see everything not go in your fucking direction. I don't know what to tell you.
You know, when was it great?
In the 50s?
If you're not a straight white guy, then the further you go into America's past, the worse it gets. Make America great again is a threat to most people.
See, I don't understand that. Like, I get if you want to be in the mindset that if we want to go back to the values of a different time and the way of doing things of a different time, that somehow means that we need to adopt all of the values of that time and all of the ways of doing things of that time. Why can't we go back to the way economically we did things in the 50s and yet still keep all of the progress that we've made socially? Why does it have to be one? Like, why can't we take both? Why can't we take the best of things and leave behind the worst of it? Why can't we do that? Why won't you let us do that?
Now, I spend a fair bit of time listening in on the Discord server for the Reddit page for Donald Trump supporters. That's r/TheDonald. And I won't go into it too much right now, but, you know, as you can see here, well, you get the picture. The talk is openly racist, worrying about the future of the white race, using all the racial slurs under the sun. And I've had a few people tell me, oh, well, this isn't serious. You know, they just like his policies and all this race talk is just a joke. But honestly...
Dude, honestly, the Discord server for the Reddit page for the... I just don't see that as being a really good litmus test of your average white person, which seems to be the way that you're addressing this. Like, this is part of the monolith you've made of white people. So, whatever.
Get a grip. If you think this is just a joke, then you've been tricked. It's amazing, I know, but racism actually still exists, and it's coming back in fashion.
Yes, racism still exists, and it still exists on Discord servers for Reddit pages. Like, dude, it isn't coming back into fucking fashion. We haven't started lynching motherfuckers, and that shit ain't gonna happen. But I know who is causing violence right now, and it's all the people who want to stop all of the discourse. It's all the people who want to stop all the talking, who don't want to discuss the bad ideas. So, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I don't see what you're seeing. I don't see it in the world. I don't get it. I think you're making it up in your head, because I don't see racism coming back into fashion. I don't get what you're talking about. What are we doing here?
Now, over the course of Trump's term, or terms, in office, a lot of these kids are going to drift away from supporting him as they realise he actually is just a politician who spun them a bunch of crap in order to get elected. And this brings us back around to where we started, with the first bunch of suckers slowly coming around to the fact that they've been conned. So, what's next? What's going to happen from here on out? Well, it's not enough for these people to just stop supporting Trump anymore. You know, the legitimization of Trump's rhetoric has already happened. Trump won't be the last, regardless of how he performs in office. A lot of potential future candidates will have been watching his rise to power and taking notes. And if I were doing that, then point 1A on my list of tips to get elected would say, you do not have to hide it anymore.
It must be terrifying living in your world. To just openly believe that everybody is just racist at their core. And that somehow, because Trump got elected, that somehow means it's okay to just be racist. Nobody has been okay with any racist activity that has happened. Nobody was okay with the Jewish cemeteries getting their headstones knocked over. Nobody was celebrating that. The people that were celebrating that were all in a Discord room from a fucking Reddit page. Like, really? Come on, man. You don't have to hide it anymore. Yeah. We'll see how far that goes. We'll see how far Richard Spencer 2020 gets. Something tells me not very fucking far. I don't know. I might be crazy. You might be right. This might be one of your predictions that comes true, but I don't buy it.
You know, the fascists have come out of the woodwork now. The white nationalist narrative is running at full steam online, and many young white guys are flocking to it. You know, we are past that point by now, I hope we can all agree. A cleverer person than me could write an interesting paper about how memes and icons and emojis have taken the place of the uniform, the pin and the armband and so on as the signifiers of a political movement.
Don't sell yourself short, man. I think from the way you've twisted all this nonsense into a fucking nice little bow, I think you could probably come up with something pretty fucking compelling. It's gonna be no less fucking stupid than anybody else that would do it, but yeah, I think you could come up with something pretty creative.
Now, these people will mostly all abandon Trump eventually, not because they've had a change of heart necessarily, but because they'll find him a disappointment. He won't drain the swamp or make America great again, and they'll all move on to someone else, promising the same things, but even bigger.
And that's the way politics works. If the last guy didn't do what you wanted, you go to the next guy that says he's going to do what you want. Like, that's the way politics works. Welcome to the fucking world, dude. Like, what are we doing here?
So my question going forward is, what can we do about these people? You know, how can we break them out of the spell of this resurgent white nationalism with its easy, racialized answers for all the world's problems. Because that's the thing. It is easy. It's comparatively difficult to learn about the economy, for instance, and how that operates, but white nationalists look at complicated systemic problems like that and make them simple racial problems.
Dude, I could say the same fucking thing about you, man. Like, oh my god. You're retarded.
You know, it's not our banking system that's broken, it's the Jews, for example. It's not the justice system, it's a problem with black people. It's not immigration law or foreign policy, it's the Muslims. You know, if we just get rid of X type of person, then the relevant problem will go away.
See, and it's gotta be genocide with you all the fucking time. Here's what I want. I want black people to stop committing crimes. There you go. I don't want to get rid of all black people. I just want them to stop shooting each other and everybody else. Like, and it's not all black people. It's just the ones who do that shit. Stop. Like, and I can say the same thing for white people. Stop committing crimes. We live in a society. Let's all live together in a society. Stop committing crimes. And you Latino people, please, stop committing crimes. I don't want to get rid of everybody. I just want everybody to stop committing crimes. Why can't it just be, hey, Muslim people, stop bombing fucking shit? Can't that just be enough? Can you just please stop doing that shit? We don't want to have to get rid of everybody. I don't want to get rid of everybody. I don't think anybody really wants to get rid of everybody. We just want to stop having crimes get committed. It's you guys who always go to get rid of everybody. Like, I don't get it.
And combating this is difficult. It requires more effort to properly understand these issues than it does to believe the easy lie. So we're starting out on the back foot here. And you'd have to have some inhuman amount of belief in the fundamental goodness of humanity to think that all of these guys could simply be talked down from the white nationalist ledge.
And you have none of that, do you? Like, you have no belief in humanity. Because every white guy is just a racist person to you. Like, it's so odd. I don't understand your agenda. You seem like a nihilist. Like, it all just doesn't matter to you. That's just the way it comes off to me. We're doomed no matter what, because we're all just inherently born with this original sin of racism and sexism and... Fuck. It's just, I feel bad. I pity you. I really do. I pity you.
Though, on the other hand, I'm sure a lot can, and I'm sure many will grow out of it. And I'd argue that as they become increasingly disillusioned with Trump over the next 4 years, it's a prime opportunity to try and change their minds. Though honestly, I don't blame anyone who doesn't have the patience to argue endlessly with the little pricks. It's like running on a treadmill, you know? It feels like you get nowhere.
It's a beautiful thing to take, like, this weird conspiracy theory almost and wrap it with enough, like, obvious truth, like, just obvious shit, and then to deliver it with such condescension and to say so many stupid things. Like, I think I've re-examined the way that I'm going to do videos when they're like this. I think I'm going to do the picture-in-picture thing, and I'll just record it and pause it whenever I want to say something. Because there were a lot of places where I would have liked to have said something that I would be stopping this thing every fucking 10 seconds. And it would be a 3-hour long video, and it's already going to be over an hour. And, like, Jesus Christ. So I think that's the way I'm going to do it from now on. I think it'll go smoother that way. But just retardedness, just retardedness wrapped in condescension. It's like a mean fat girl. You just don't quite get it.
Now, I don't know how to ultimately solve this problem, but I do have one suggestion I think could help. They could really use another political narrative to get behind. You know, the popularity of Bernie Sanders, say,
Oh my god. Which, I mean, this just goes to show, like, the disconnect with this guy. The fact that he's even bringing up Bernie Sanders is fucking...
Definitely proved at least the desire for a more left-leaning platform from the Democrats, which the Democrats themselves are now ignoring as much as possible instead of capitalizing on.
They're ignoring it because it was a huge loser. It was... People voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton was pretty far right of Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump is so far right of Bernie Sanders that they're not even on the same planet, really. Like, you really are just fucking retarded, aren't you?
There are even some people who swapped from supporting Sanders to supporting Trump when Sanders dropped out, which seems like an inexplicable position if you're focused on policy. It's ridiculous, but it actually kind of makes sense if you think in terms of the narrative of the political outsider.
No. It makes sense if you think of it in the terms of there were a fucking shit ton of people who were anybody but Hillary. Hillary Clinton. There's your X factor, dude. Hillary Clinton. You forget about her? Hillary Clinton? She was the reason why fucking Bernie Sanders supporters went to Trump. Because it was anybody but Hillary. They were the anybody but Hillary people. Like, retarded.
There's a hunger for politics that differ from the mainstream, and the actual specifics of how they differ from the mainstream seems not to matter to some people.
Like, it's exhausting. It's just exhausting to listen to him. Just the stupidity. Just the non-stop, constant stream of stupidity. It's exhausting.
And there's a way, I feel, to appeal directly to the part of these young white guys that subconsciously maybe wants to be part of an oppressed movement. And it's ironic because economically the answer's right there in front of them. They have no choice but to take part in an oppressive economic system that's heavily biased in favour of the rich.
I don't get it. You need to read more books on economics, dude. You fucking...
The lack of a political identity that some young white men feel could ideally be filled with a class identity. You know, still talking about real problems but through an actually helpful economic lens instead of a misleading and bigoted racial one.
You know, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? That would be awesome. There's just so many things where I'm like, you know, I can see the exact same thing back at you, slightly different. And I still feel that I have just as valid of an argument as you do.
Criticising capitalism is kind of a hard sell in the States, though, I understand. And I'll throw it open to the comments, you know. What else can we do to re-educate these people out of their white nationalism? And yes, I said re-educate. I want to re-educate you. You gave it a go by yourself, but you fucked up, and now your brain is wrong and needs to be reprogrammed.
How did I fuck up? How did I fuck up? I still feel pretty good about everything as it's happened. Like, cause I can look beyond the emotional aspect of shit. So I don't really feel like I fucked up. I don't really feel like I need re-educated. I don't really know what to tell you.
Because ultimately, if this doesn't stop, it's gonna come to blows. And I don't mean a street scuffle between a group of anti-fascists and a group of white nationalists, but potentially, you know, well, if this movement doesn't fizzle out by itself, it'll eventually end up being stamped out. And it'd be better to solve all this with words before it comes to that.
It would. It very much would. But you're still towing the all white men are racist line. That doesn't fly. That's what's starting the fights.
because the white nationalists will definitely lose that fight if it happens, just like they did last time. It's an ideology that is destined to lose.
And that's why nobody is seriously considering it. And that's why nobody seriously cares about people like Richard Spencer, except for people like you. You see some white dude standing up somewhere going, white people are the fucking supreme race or whatever, and you see a group of people who are agreeing with him, and you go, all white people fucking think this way. And no. Like, it's you have no faith in humanity. You have no faith in humanity. That's what it really all comes down to. You have no faith in humanity, and you think this is a zero-sum game. And you're wrong on both cases. So, you're just wrong in every way.
So I'll leave you today with a warning for any of my fellow straight white gamer dudes who are listening. It honestly really is in your best interests to stay away from the old fascism there. It never turns out like they say it will, I promise.
Yeah, get in with the new fascism. The new fascism is the way to go. Marxist fascism. Let's all force everybody into equality with everybody else. Let's handicap the world, and someday maybe bears will fight men in arenas. Who knows? It just it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I know you want to try it, and that's cute and everything, but we found the system that works, and you need to fight not against the system that works anymore. Like, you need to stop fighting against the system that works. It works. The system works. If you ask the great economists of the world, they will tell you that the American system is the one that has worked best, and you all are trying to fuck it up. And I'm fine with black people and everybody else being a part of it, but if you're going to be a part of the society, you have to fit in your fucking place in the society. Wherever that may be. If you can earn your way up to CEO of a company, God bless. But if you can't, it's not because the white man's holding you down. It's because you're fucking not doing your shit right, and you need to do better. And that goes for everybody. White people too. It goes for everybody. It should go for everybody. We should live in a meritocracy. You should be graded on the merit of your actions. It's the way it should be. Martin Luther King said that. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't get your point of view. I don't get your worldview. It's very sad. I feel bad for you. And I don't understand how you can say such stupid things with such condescension in your voice and not expect to be laughed at. I mean, come on, man. A lot of the conclusions you've drawn are just silly. Just silly to me. Just silly. I don't even know how else to say it. If you're watching this to this point and you don't get what I'm saying, and you would like me to explain that it's silly, no real points were ever brought up. It was more of an explanation of a course of events as far as he sees it. So I did the best I could. I really didn't have a lot to work with. Like I said, they're not all going to be over the fucking fence. But I thought I had some good points in there, and I certainly thought I wanted to just kind of go, because it seemed like the whole video, it's a half-hour long video. That's why I did the whole fucking thing. And it just, I don't know. It just seems like a warped mind view, a warped mindset with a warped worldview, and just an unrealistic lack of empathy and faith in humankind. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Maybe I'm just more of a positive person than Shaun. Maybe Shaun has depressive issues. Maybe that's why he's so the way he is. I don't know. But whatever it is, I hope you find peace, man, with something. Jesus Christ. Maybe it's all that guilt you swim in. You should really, shed that shit. You should shake off the shackles of feeling bad because other people don't succeed. That really isn't your problem. It's not your fault. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I just feel really bad for you.